Welcome back, PBO people. You can't see me, but I'm excited. We're back with Sunset Power Rankings. I have entrusted two of the best analysts for Sunset. They both play in the Div, the Charleston Chestnaughts,
What's up?
and the Syracuse Snorlax.
Howdy, y'all.
And look at this team at 14. I'll let these two take it away.
Okay, so first off, here in 14th, we have the same team I think that was here last time, the Salt Lake Salandits. This week they played one of the top teams, being the Tokyo Teddiursas, Kuma, and she lost to Tokyo this week. It was a lot closer than some of Tokyo's other games have been this season, I believe. In terms of Kuma's wins, it was the closest win he's had, and so in that sense, Salt Lake gave Tokyo a run for his money. She also had potentially put him in some scary situations with the Suicune, which had set up with Calm Mind. It ended up freezing the Poliwrath, got some big chip off on Zoru before going down. And Lycanroc Dusk proved it was really, really freaking strong by Okoing Thunderous through a Charty Berry with Stone Edge. And so, like, overall, the game could have gone a lot differently if a couple things had gone differently for Salt Lake. I believe she tricked the Toxic Orb onto the Terapagos to limit setup. I think it was with Azelf, which was a really smart bring. And on top of that, Alolan Muck was clear smog. So basically, Terapagos was not doing a whole lot that game. But overall, even though some of the tech was cool and the game was closer than a lot of Kuma's other games, it wasn't enough to push Salt Lake up over some of these other teams. And overall, I feel like I don't actually think, if we look at the records and differentials, I don't even think Salt Lake is technically like completely out of playoff contention yet. I don't know how the numbers all work out, but I think theoretically, in a world where Salt Lake 6-0s the rest of her games, I think she could technically qualify for playoffs. So like games are still worth playing at this point. And on the rest of her schedule, let me just check. Going against Geo, Metro Boomburstin, and Orlando Magikarps, which is honestly a really tough schedule, but I don't know. At this point, to qualify for playoffs, Salt Lake's really gonna have to lock in and like really be counting differential at this point. What do you think, Syracuse?
So I feel like they're definitely a victim of, wins matter. A lot of their games, excluding the one against Clonbrook, which was a 6-0, every other game's at least been, 3-0s or 2-0s. So they all been, down to the wire close games. They just haven't been able to cinch that win. So even though like they may be at the bottom of the power rankings, it's more so of, being more of a victim of being winless. Like you said, they could still play it out if things go their way. They can probably cinch that last playoff spot, or even just get out of being relegated down to Neon. 3-5 easily can keep you in the division, and it's just more of just a tragedy of just close games, just being outplayed ever so slightly here and there. But it's nothing against them, nothing they've been really misplaying or anything like that. They've come in with some cool tech, and like you said, it's just more of just haven't been able to get over that slight hump to get those wins here and there. They did have a really rough schedule. I mean, the one match they could have won was a forced win because they took over another team week 1 against Toronto. So I could have seen them being even 1-4 right now instead of 1-5 if it wasn't for taking over that unfortunate situation. But otherwise than that, I would like to see if they can squeeze out 2 or 3 more wins. I would easily say they're going to get out of this last place in the power rankings. They just need to get that one win.
All right. With that, I guess we'll move on to our number 13 place, which is the Toronto Staraptors. Now, this team actually hasn't won a game on its own yet. Like the one win we see on that record was a forfeit win from week 1. So hasn't won a game since then, and they haven't been particularly close either. Last week played against Metro Boomburstin, which I want to point out, that game came down to RNG. Because I believe the Excalibur was loaded dice, and if it had hit its 5th Icicle Spear against Avalugg, it won the game. And also, if Avalik had missed the Stone Edge, it would have won the game. So if you do the math there, it's like 50% for the Icicle Spear chance, I think, plus the 20% miss chance from the Stone Edge, making it be technically in Toronto's favor to win that end game, but just not the dice roll didn't go in his favor, and he ended up losing the game. But there were some hurricane misses from Metro Boomburstin as well. So like I can't say that it was just a hacks fest. No, there was some on both sides, but that was the one that cost Toronto the game at the end. Overall, I feel like what's been an issue for Toronto's team here, at least the ones that have been like the teams that have been coming to games, is a lot of his guys just kind of get stuck on the field a little bit. Like you can see in the game against Metro, the Sinistcha gets caught in like a pain split toxic war kind of with the Quillfish Hisui, and it ends up kind of going 1-for-1. But like there was no way to like slow pivot out, and like a lot of these guys, the Tusks and the Baxcaliburs and the Ninetales really appreciate those switch-ins, and this team just kind of is missing some of those. Like Probopass, can Volt Switch, Raikou can Volt Switch, but also those inviting ground types, and B, they're not coming to games consistently enough for the rest of the team to be actually like getting those benefits. But overall, like Toronto's team, he may be down here right now, but it's such a scary team that it can absolutely still beat people. I said it at the beginning of the season, and I'll keep saying it. This team is like a nightmare to prep for, and it will absolutely cheese some wins. Not even cheese some wins. It'll just beat teams just based on those top two Pokemon. And if we look at the rest of his schedule going forward, he goes against some like I think all of these teams on the rest of his schedule are in the top half of the leaderboards right now. Tokyo is sitting at 4th. New York Nickits, I think, is sitting at 8th, I want to say, maybe 7th. And Snowpoint Temple is sitting at, I believe, 6th or 7th place right now. So like they're all like good teams right now. So he's going to have to be smart about what he brings and what sets he brings, like how he plays during the games, and really try to not let anything get stuck on the field. What do you think, Syracuse?
So I think I said this a few weeks ago when we last did this. I used this team a lot when mocking versus Tottenham, and I really do enjoy this team. I really like this team. I think Terra Porygon Z is a mon that gets slept on a lot and can do a lot of damage. Really, you don't know if it's going to be Shadow Balling, substitute Nasty Plot. I really, really enjoy this mon, and I really enjoy this team. This is a really nice team of a lot of scary mons, like you said, to prep against. It's just been getting past or block it is to get these wins. Like you said, things have been staying a little too long on the field. Just kind of going 1-for-1 trades where you really need to go for like a 2-for-1 trade or a 3-for-1 trade. I feel like this is also one of the teams that has utilized every single mon. I think this might be one of the only teams in the division that has brought every single mon at least once. So they're trying out everything. They're just struggling to get those wins. Granted, they did have probably one of the harder schedules in the division. The only bottom half team they faced is Salt Lake, which was the force win, and Metro Boomburstin. Everyone else, I would say, are top half teams. At least 8 and above, or around that area. So they have had one of the rougher schedules. But even then, I think if they clean sweep from here and go 4-4, there's potential for them to even make playoffs. So I'd keep playing, and I easily can avoid relegation as well for these bottom teams. There's always playing to stay in the division, and I'm not sure what other transactions I would do if I wouldn't. I don't really see anything I'd want to swap out of this team. It's just maybe trying to get maybe a little bit more creative with the sets or something of that nature. This is, I'm kind of almost stumped trying to figure out like what more could they do here.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to our number 12 team right now, being the Metro Boomburstin. Now, I talked about this game a little bit, like just a minute ago, because she beat Toronto this week, and really what it was is we're kind of seeing a lot of Kilowattrel usage from Metro this season. it's come to all 3 games that she's played, and it has 3 kills, but part of that's like basically when she used it against me, it basically killed him on, even though it didn't like actually get the credit for it. And she's just been using a lot of pressure with that thing, even if she hasn't been terroring it every game, because last game against Toronto, she didn't end up terroring it because she ended up using Terra on the Avalugg as a Backscalibur check, which ended up working out, but could have gone very badly if the backs had just gotten. I feel like the Quillfish probably won't ever actually be clicking the Terra button, but it's mostly just here as a defensive piece anyways, so it's mostly fine. But overall, she bounced back from a loss the week before, and this is another team where, like, again, I'm going to stop saying it after this because this applies to every team at this point. No one is out of playoffs yet, so as long as Metro just like locks in these last few weeks, she can absolutely qualify for playoffs. And if we look at the schedule going forward, the rest of these teams are all like towards the bottom of the rankings at the moment. Manila, I believe, is just barely above Metro at the moment. The same record, but only 3 differential ahead. After that is Salt Lake, which is our current bottom team, no wins yet. And then after that is Tottenham Hoothoots, which is a 2-3 team at the moment, which we'll be talking about in a little bit here. So basically, I feel like this team, having played against this team, it is a terror to prep for. Like, just look at those first 6 Pokemon right there, and just think, wow, how do I actually prep around? How do I prep for a Blood Moon for one? Like, Blood Moon is impossible to prep for already, and now Annihilate and Ogerpon are forcing me into even more defensive situations. And then you just have the glue pieces of Primarina, Heatran, and Dragonite to bring everything together. And so this team can absolutely. I would not be surprised to see this team go 4-4 and have a very positive record going into playoffs. What do you think, Syracuse?
I agree with you. This is a team that could easily make playoffs. 4-4, they can easily, clean sweep the rest of these next 3-4 weeks or next 3 weeks. I think Tottenham is really going to be the only one that gives them that might be a big challenge. As you said, those top 6, they are bulky, scary mons. I mean, Ogerpon Water's not bulky, but the rest of them are. The only issue they have with this team, and it's one they inherited, so it's not like they're the ones that drafted it this way, but it's very, the speed tiers are kind of on the lower end. You got Kilowattrel and like Ogerpon, which are really like your 2 fastest mons, and everything else is like, fat and slow-ish, or like in the mid tiers, mid of speed tiers. And I feel like that's gonna be the only thing they really have been struggling with, is just a lot of those faster threats have been causing pressure on a lot of their matches, which has caused a lot of sweeps here and there. They did have a really rough start to the beginning of the season, obviously having taking over a team that had, I think, 2 forced wins, or at least 1 forced win, and then having to face 2 top 4 teams immediately after that. Sets their record up to be 1-4. But this is a team where the next few weeks for power rankings, they're going to be climbing up, and I can see them making playoffs. If they can have a cool, a Minnesota Miracle comeback and sweep the playoffs, that would be something to get hyped about. But overall, it's a good team. Like I said, the main issue I just see with this is the speed tiers. But if you can make it work, you can make it work. And I think we'll be talking about them later on in the next few videos versus this early on.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to our number 11 team, which is the Manilla Manectrics. Now, this is a team that we had ranked very highly in the preseason power rankings. And honestly, I feel like right now it's kind of just been a bit of a learning curve that Manila's been struggling with. I think part of why he hasn't been doing too great overall is partially because of the Registeel, I want to say. I feel like every time he brings it, it almost feels like it's trying to do offensive things instead of the support stuff. Like, I've seen him bring Ice Spinner twice. He brought Ironhead last game. And, like, it's not terrible. But Registeel, like, if you're going to be trying to make offensive progress with Registeel, you usually want to be clicking some sort of setup move like Iron Defense, and I think Registeel gets Curse. Like if you can start clicking those buttons and making progress that way, it's gonna be way more effective than just clicking your coverage move with it, because I think it has 75 attack, and it's just not gonna be doing much damage with it. As for his game this week, he played against New York Nickits, which is, I think, in terms of rankings on the leaderboards, it's a pretty middle of the pack team. But what happened this game was, I think the lead choice was very interesting, being Meowscarada into the Deoxys Speed. I don't think it's like inherently a bad lead choice. I think the set was a bit ill-advised, I guess, because it just started spamming spikes with a Hatterene facing it down on the other side. And I feel like risking that right away, while also not KOing the Dio Speed, is kind of a crazy play. And when it ended up happening is New York ended up bouncing back the final layer of spikes against it. So it was basically Manilla was losing the Hazard War from the get-go, and then I think he ended up tearing the Registeel instead of the Saraledge, which honestly probably ended up costing him the game, because if Saraledge had lived at one point, like the combination of knockoff into Bullet Punch from Hitmonchan, it would have won the game. But since it had already used Terra, it did not live knockoff into Bullet Punch. And so because of that, he ended up losing the game. And Iron Bundle, I don't know what it was. During the game, it clicked Ice Beam into a Terra Normal Flareon, and it did like negative damage. And then Flareon killed it back. I don't know what the nature or the spread on the bundle was, but if you're running bundle, you gotta be like milking those offenses as much as possible. You probably don't want to be running Scarf super often unless it's for a specific thing. Booster speed, in my opinion, is like not very good on bundle, because you want to be getting it in as much as possible and spamming those specs ice moves, right? And so if your booster speed, you're just not only are you limiting how many times you can come in and be useful, you're also hitting a lot weaker. So I don't know. I just feel like it's been a really big learning curve, like learning what mons to prioritize on your team. That's been the issue with Manilla so far. But looking forward, if we look at the schedule, he plays against Metro Boomburstin this week. So that's a team. While I said it was very scary, it is beatable. And after that is Orlando Magikarps, which on the leaderboards is our #1 team right now. Get ready to hear about that a little bit later. And then Cherry Hill Bellsprouts. Like these are good teams right here. So honestly, it's kind of an uphill battle for Manilla if he wants to qualify for playoffs at this point. But it is possible. What do you think, Syracuse?
So, touch base on the Iron Bundle thing. I don't know if it was, like you said, what items it was. We don't know what the sets are. It's, we don't have like the Poke Paste or anything like that. I understand a lot of times people don't want to click the Hydro Pump because they're scared of the miss. Using Bundle, I always encourage people. It's if you're gonna take this mon, you're gonna be playing the risks of clicking Hydro Pump and clicking. Even sometimes clicking Blizzard if you have the snow support for it, but taking that risk, to get that little extra damage, because at the time of that match, like nothing really wants to swap into like a Hydro Pump. Really, I guess Garchomp can swap into, but then it's risking the Ice Beam versus like Goldango could have like tanked the Ice Beam, but can't really tank the Hydro Pump in that instance. It's just one of those mons where like you said, we don't know what the set was in the calcs. And then another thing to note is he has Glamora, 130 point mon, but it has not been brought to a single match. If you don't think you're going to bring this mon, I would probably recommend, because I think this is probably the last week for transactions, correct?
Yeah.
I would look into swapping it out with something, because looking at the 130 point range, you have quite a few things. You have both Galarian Zapdos, Galarian Moltres, Hoopa Unbound, Hydreigon, Crocodile. There's still a lot of really good offensive mons. If you're not going to be bringing Glamora because you already have, hazards and other stuff, try and grab another offensive threat would be my suggestion to them. Just because, like you said, there's 130 points just kind of sitting on your bench. I understand the jump left, it's a 10-point mon, who cares? But 130 points to not be brought any week is kind of hurts me a little inside. And then, I would look into maybe swapping out Terras as well. I think I said this last time. Terra Grass and Terra Bug, I feel like almost kind of do something similar. I would probably look into maybe swapping one of the Terras. And like you said, the Registeel play has, I feel like, almost thrown him off, as you brought up earlier. It's just like you're trying to do almost too much with this Mon, and it's kind of hurting everything else in the long run. Otherwise than that, I'm really excited to see them play Metro Boomburstin, because this will, this is the match to basically stay out of regulation. Whoever wins this match, I feel like, is probably not going to get relegated. And but I'm excited to see, because this can be the week for either team to start that momentum to stay out of regulation and even potentially make playoffs.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to our number 10 team, being the Tottenham Hoothoots. Now, this team is coming off of a loss to Syracuse, and
I'm sorry, my friend.
honestly, I absolutely understand why. Looking at this team, like the matchup was not great for Tottenham. I think Syracuse really capitalized on some of his biggest threats, namely the Tornadoes, which I believe got 5 kills. Is that right?
Yeah, 5-0'd.
It was 5 kills, and it would have been 6 if the Ursaluna were guts instead of bulletproof. But honestly, since that was the case, since the Ursaluna was bulletproof, I feel like he probably should have gone to it way earlier and tried to kill the Tornadoes. So that was a misplay there. I think another thing that Tottenham is kind of doing that isn't great for his team is I feel like he's really relying too much on a Bronzong lead scenario. Like Bronzong, it's a good lead, don't get me wrong, and it's a great trick room setter for Ursaluna, for Iron Hands, even for like Muck if you wanted to. I think it's got like 105 attack or something. But if you start doing it too much and you start doing the same things, getting up rocks, getting up screens, getting up trick rooms, and like booming or something, or like even the win you got against Toronto, I think it was Toronto, with the Calm Mind stored power Bronzong, it gets really predictable after a certain point. I know I just rattled off a ton of sets, but if your opponent knows you bring lead Bronzong every week, they can just bring something with taunt in the lead slot and beat you 100% of the time for free. And I worry that Tottenham is like gonna fall into a trap with that kind of thing, because actually, if you look at his team, a lot of his guys, pretty much actually every single one of them, like the first 7 Pokemon, all really like to run setup moves. So if you can taunt or encore people on this team, Tottenham's team becomes like 10 times easier to manage. And so basically, he just needs to be careful not to fall into these traps. And if he does that, then I think he absolutely stands a chance. Like this team, like if we look at the rest of his schedule, he goes against Clonbrook Kyorgres, which is a middle of the road team so far, but honestly, a lot of the wins were kind of handed to him. Not saying like that Clonbrook's a bad player, but a lot of the wins, like one was a forfeit, another one was against the last place team who was also sick at the time. So like the opponents weren't playing their best against Clonbrook a lot of the time, but that's for in a minute. Tottenham. Point being, I think Tottenham could beat Clonbrook. Like I don't think it's a lost cause. Scarborough Sceptiles, that's Geo, and that's a very highly ranked team right now. But I feel like Tottenham's matchup into that isn't terrible. Like there's a Darkrai into the team with double ghosts. Like immediately, that is not a lost cause by definition. And then against Metro Boomburstin, another team that's towards the bottom. So like Tottenham could feasibly win all 3 of these games, and like be a healthy playoff team. And so basically, I feel like Tottenham just needs to not fall into predictability traps with this team. I think that's the number one thing that Tottenham needs to do looking forward. What do you think, Syracuse?
So, not to keep repeating ourselves, because we are going to keep repeating ourselves over and over again, but when it comes to Sunset, the Sunset Thunderdome, a lot of these teams can easily still make playoffs, still avoid relegation. I think, like you said earlier, hitting on the Bronzong play, just kind of, if Bronzong's a mon that really gets hurt by the four move syndrome. It really wants to bring. If it had like 5 or 6 moves, this thing would be insane. I know when I was mocking for this team, I was really scared of the Trick Room Ursaluna. It was just like that was my main thing I was kind of scared of, but also really didn't have a good Tauntmon I really wanted to bring. But as I've mocked against this team many times, just mocking with Tottenham a lot, setup is very prevalent. Like you said earlier, these first 7 Mons, you see Quiver Dance, Sleep Powder, Lilligant, Take Heart, Manaphy, Calm Mind, Latias, Swords Dance, Iron Hands, Swords Dance, Nasty Plot. This is a very setup heavy team. And then another weakness I see potentially on his team is the only hazard removal he has is Smeargle. Sadly, he's already used all of his transactions, so it's not really a thing he can fix at this moment. But Smeargle kind of has to come into any match where you see a lot of hazards just to be the hazard removal, which sucks because Smeargle wants to be able to do a lot of things because it can do literally everything, except for I think Dark Void or something like that. I think they just removed that in this generation. So. But otherwise than that, it can do everything. But when I was prepping against him this week, I saw him like, oh, there's no hazard removal unless you bring Smeargle. So time to make sure I get some hazards up. So that'll be an issue he has going forward with most of these matches is everyone's just going to be looking up to set up hazards because otherwise there's no real way to remove them. Bronzong losing Defog in this generation is kind of insane. I didn't realize until...
Bronzong never had Defog, did it?
It used to have Defog, I'm pretty sure.
I am.
I'll say...
99% sure that's not true, but okay. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm sorry then. My mistake. For some reason, I think it had Defog. I'm going to look that up afterwards, but... it's a very scary team, and when it comes to setup, if you can get the setup off, it's nasty. The speed tiers are really nice on this team. Thunderous T and Darkrai being really fast. And he's got the slower Mons that can abuse the Trick Room with Ursaluna and Iron Hands. It's an overall Swiss Army knife team, as I said a few weeks ago. It just got to get into that play of almost same thing we talked about with the Manilla's team with the Registeel. These steel types kind of bring out almost bad habits for some reason. But yeah, that's about all I can say there.
All right, then we're gonna move on to our number 9, being the Cherry Hill the Cherry Hill Bellsprouts. Sorry, I got caught in my whatever. All right, he played against Nico this week, which, like I said already, on the leaderboards, that's the team at number 1 right now. Technically tied for number 1, but at number 1 regardless. Now, what happened here is Gouging Fire happened. It was tough. It happens. Basically, I feel like, honestly, that the Gouging Fire mess could have been avoided. Because I just think it was an Appleton issue. Terra Fairy Appleton, on paper, looks like a phenomenal counter to Gouging Fire. If you Terra Fairy and you're thick fat, you basically beat most of the sets it could go for, bar crazy Ironhead flinches. But instead, it took 54% from an Earthquake at +1, I think. And I think the issue is either Appleton wasn't invested properly, or you just weren't respecting the gouging enough to run Iron Defense. And with a mon as threatening as gouging into the entire rest of your team, you really have to respect the gouging enough to either run Iron Defense or bring Slowbro and start clicking Thunder Wave. But I don't think Slowbro came to this game. So that just instantly makes it harder. So yeah, Gouging Fire got 5 kills against this team, and I think the Rotom got the other kill against Clodsire. Overall, this team is it's not a bad team at all. It's a fat team with a couple really strong breakers and cleaners. It's just in that okay, that sounds like a regular team, like I just described it. But what I mean is the bulk is very bulky and the offense is very offensive. And there's not a whole lot of middle ground Pokemon in that aspect. If we look at the rest of the schedule, it goes against New York Nickits, Snowpoint Temple, and Manila. Which is it's not an easy schedule. New York Nickits is, I believe, 8th place right now overall. and Snowpoint is 7th. So like they're not bad teams at all. And then Manila is like towards the bottom, but again, his team is very scary, and you can't just take it for granted. Especially because his team has the bundle. Which, if you look at this team, if Appleton doesn't Terra, it like kind of smashes. But, anyways, I think overall, basically Cherry Hill just needs to like really respect threats on the other team. You can't just throw a Pokemon on that like beats some sets and just take it for granted. You have to like really make sure that the Pokemon can lock down the threat, because like we saw this week, he kind of assumed Appleton would beat Gouging Fire, and it didn't, and he lost because of it. Outside of that, the game could have been very winnable for Cherry Hill, because if we look at Nico's team, if he had brought like Specs Valiant, or like even just physical Spirit Break Valiant, Nico's team just doesn't have great answers to that. And so basically, if he had been able to position that a little bit better, he could have been in a winning position very easily. But the thing is, if you give Gouging Fire an inch, it'll take the mile, and that's exactly what happened this game. I'll stop repeating myself on that. I'll pass it off to Syracuse. What do you think?
I think I said this in the last video. I really, really like this team. It's very fat with having some insane offensive threats in the form of like Valiant, Bolt, and then even can't sleep on Chandelure or Ogerpon. But having Slowbro, Wo-Chien, Appleton, Clodsire, Corviknight, you got some really insane defensive pieces here. Just the thing that's been the trend with Cherry Hill is it's either been 5-0s with or a 6-0 in their favor, or they've been getting swept with -5 differential. So it's almost been a coin flip of every week of just like being dominant or getting dominated. It's one or the other with them. So it could go either way. I'm really excited. This week has a lot of matchups of teams jostling for positions. We mentioned this with Metro and Manila, and now we're going to mention this again with Cherry Hill and Nickits. They're right next to each other. Spoiler, it's in the power rankings. So a lot of these teams, jostling for power. It's a really exciting week this next week, and I'm really interested to see where he goes, because he has a very winnable schedule. They are Snowpoint is a tougher team. Nickits can be a tough team above them, but if he squeaks out two more wins, could easily make playoffs, as we keep saying. But this is a team where it's looking up more than down. So we'll see where they can go from here. It's all in their playbook, in their corner.
All right, before we move on from this team, I just want to point out one thing. Clodsire is the kill leader on this team.
Yes.
Not only that, it's in the top 10 for kills in the division. It's kind of crazy because it's a Clodsire. I'm gonna move on now to our number 8 team.
Follow up.
The New York Nickits.
Bronzong has never gotten defog. I checked from all the way back to Gen 4.
Yeah,
I know.
I checked in Gen 7. But
I checked as well. I guess I was having a Mandela effect or something. So
you might be thinking of. I don't know. Moving on.
It was a Gen 4 Mon when defog came out. It makes sense for it to have defog. I don't know. I'm just having like is that a Mandela effect for some reason?
Anyways, our number 8 team is going to be the New York Nickits. We just talked about this team a little bit. But we're also going to get into it a little bit more of what happened this week against Manila. I think it was Manila, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a 1-0 against Manila. And honestly, there was a lot of misplays going on from New York this week. I think both in the builder and in the game itself. I think leading Deoxys speed and spamming spikes isn't inherently a bad thing. But also, you had a magic bouncer against the opposing spiker that you just didn't go to. Like Caleb mentioned it during the game. He said, "I could have gone out to Hatterene one turn earlier and gotten the same effect here." But instead, he lost one turn on it. The Hitmonchan put in a lot of work. Real ones know I'm a Hitmonchan hater, but I can't deny that it was putting in work this game. It stopped the Sarilege sweep. It just straight up prevented his loss. On top of that, Flareon also put in crazy work this game, absolutely swallowing a bundle Ice Beam, which I did look at Flareon stats, huh? Maybe it has 110 SPDF. Like maybe that's where its evolution 110 stat went. And I was right. It has 110 SPDF, so that's probably why it took so little. But anyways, it got, I think, it killed I want to say the Sylveon, and it killed the Bundle, which were like two really important threats this game. In terms of the prep issue that I mentioned, I don't know what it was for, but Golden Go was Flash Cannon instead of Make It Rain, which I just don't understand why that would ever be the case unless it was to like try and beat Wish Sylveon because your set didn't kill it in 3 hits. Because I'm pretty sure the way it works is Make It Rain, even through the special attack drop, does more damage after 2 hits than Flash Cannon. But the 3rd hit Flash Cannon does more damage. I could be wrong with that, but I don't know. If that was your plan to beat Sylveon, I would have just said, just bring Nasty Plot on Golden Go and beat it anyways. But I don't know. The Garchomp was Scale Shot, which into Manilla's team. Let me check. It looks okay, but I feel like if Sylveon pivots in on anything like that, and you're not packing the right move, or if it's Scarf Meow Scarada with like triple axle, or even Donphan could just live any hit and click Ice Spinner at that point. So like, I just don't know if Scale Shot Garchomp was the move this game. I don't want to be unfair though, because I feel like I might be digging into the specific brings this week a little bit more than I've done it to other teams, which might not be fair. But the dancing around Manilla's threats was done very well. I'll give New York that. That was done well. I just feel like if some of the prep and play were executed a little bit more cleanly, this could have been more than a 1-0 from New York. Like, this team is very scary. Like, the top 3 are crazy good mons. Not only are they crazy good mons, crazy good together. They have a lot of synergy together. And so with that, it's this team is very scary to prep for. If we look forward at their schedule, they play against Cherry Hill, which we talked about a little bit before. It's another one of those power games where they're jostling for leaderboard spots. Toronto, which is a winnable game, and then he plays against me, which he doesn't stand a chance, let me just say. He doesn't stand a chance against me. But anyway, for real, this is a schedule that, in my opinion, like he could drop a game or two here and probably still qualify for playoffs. Maybe, I don't know. It's hard because if you look at his record, he's 3-2. He's a positive record, but his differential is like pretty far in the negative. Like his losses have been big losses, and his wins have been pretty small. So I don't know. Maybe this is a team where like the wins do have to be a little bit more strategically placed and like a bit more of a bigger win to actually qualify for playoffs. But honestly, I'm not sure. But yeah, so basically, for Caleb to stay in this for the rest of the season, he needs to win big at least once or twice, just to keep that differential up to like kind of get an edge over some of the other teams that are closer in the leaderboards. What do you think, Syracuse?
My initial thoughts, I look at his schedule and I immediately get bad jealous. Only facing 2 of the top 5 teams. I mean, you face Clonbrook, I guess they're like in the top 6 teams, but you only face 2 of the top teams. So I immediately get jealous looking at the schedule, and I think that's one of the caveats they have against them is you would hope there'd be a bigger differential, looking at the schedule and stuff like that for their position. I think in terms of his position on the power rankings, he has wins matter leading him, but versus like looking at his play versus like some of the other guys maybe down below him, he could fall down, or he could continue to go up the leaderboards. I feel like this is he's in a unique position of the ball's in his court, and he can either stay where he is or easily can fall down the power rankings very quickly in these next few weeks. It's all just up to him. Like you said, some questionable plays, and some of the wins he has are a lot closer versus teams that are below him in the power rankings. You would have hoped that would have been a lot higher. I think his week 2 win was a forced win, correct? Against
I was just going to say that. I think you're...
So, But so his 2 losses, granted, are against like top 8 teams, top 6 team, whatever, versus Kuma and Clonbrook. So I guess he has been losing to the teams that you'd think he should be losing to, winning against the teams he should be winning. It's just not as close as you would hope for. In terms of team wise, he's got those initial 3, which are really scary. Granted, I always, I'm not a big Deoxys Speed fan. I think if you're going to be spending 170 points to set up spikes, there's a lot better mons to do that for a lot cheaper. I feel like with Deoxys Speed, for the amount of points it is, I want to see a little bit more creativity with the sets, trying to get a little bit more pressure on. But Goldango being Goldango, it's the best steel type right now, I think, easily. And then Garchomp is Garchomp. He's got Mandibuzz, he's got Hatterene, he's got Vaporeon, he's got some very fat mons, he's got some very good offensive mons, he's got a good all-around team. But when you're in the Sunset Thunderdome, the ball's in his court, and I feel like these next few weeks, especially this week, is probably his most important week. I'm excited to see what he's going to do, and I hope to see him in playoffs. But like I keep saying, it's in his court, and he can go up or down. And I wish Caleb the best. Let's see what he can do. This is definitely his proving ground. Welcome to Sunset.
All right, and with that, we're going to move on to our number 7 team, being the Clonbrook Kyorgres. Now, this is a team where had a very easy first couple weeks. He got some big wins, got some got one forfeit win, one against a sick opponent, and then just a strong overall. But these last couple weeks, he's kind of been struggling. He got 6-0'd by Cherry Hill. He lost to Snowpoint, but honestly, I feel like Snowpoint let it get a little bit closer than it needed to. But also, I feel like Clonbrook very easily could have won that game also. Because I feel like if our Chaladon was a better set than the Draco Meteor Eject Pack set that Clonbrook has basically trademarked at this point, our Chaladon could have clutched up an endgame on its own. But instead, it basically, Regieleki got hard punished by the Volt Absorb Jolteon. I think if our Chaladon had just been Flash Cannon or something, it probably would have won the end game against Snowpoint Temple. But basically, I think if we look at this team, I talked about it earlier this season. Rotom Heat was his only Fairy Resist for most of the season, and then they dropped Rotom Heat. It's for Pelipper. So now this team is it's a hard rain team with no Swift Swimmer. The water type outside of Pelipper is Al and Terra Water Diancie. Right? I guess all of his Terra Captains have Terra Water on. Our Chaladon it's a phenomenal rain guy. I'm not going to knock. Rillaboom also pairs really well with your Chaladon. But a lot of these guys just feel like support for it's support for something that doesn't have enough offensive structure to it. It's supporting an offense that doesn't exist as much. I think another thing that also could have gone differently in this week's game was the Diancie. I don't remember the set, but I remember it sitting there for a while and getting what would have been a lot of free turns to set up and draining Kiss and store power and win the game. But it didn't end up doing that. It just got kind of destroyed pretty quickly. I will say, I really liked the lead play from Clonbrook. It was Mudsdale versus the Petulant, weakness policy Petulant. And Mudsdale just kept spamming high horsepower. And sure, it procs the weakness policy, but at the same time, you're keeping the Petulant low. You're not letting it just sit there and make progress. Basically, Clonbrook forced the Petulant to, sure, it got it when it wanted off, but then it was dead after that. He didn't let it snowball. He just he didn't get stuck in the trap of oh shit, I just popped this thing's weakness policy. I need to switch out and try and get this thing out of here. Instead, he kept his cool, kept hitting the threat till it was out of recovers, and then let it kill him so he could get something else safely to revenge it. And I think that was good play. And I just feel like if some of his sets were a little bit better, like the Diancie and Archaladon specifically, he could have clutched up the end game much better and kind of really just put Snowpoint in a bad position. Instead, the Regieleki got super goobed by by Volt Absorb Terra Ghost Jolteon. So basically, even if it was E-Speed like some sort of physical Regieleki. Which I don't think it was. Even if it were, then like it wouldn't be able to touch the Jolteon because it was Terra Ghost. I also don't want to sweep this under the rug. The Conkeldurr was also putting Snowpoint in a pack for it there after the Petrant went down. Conk just kind of clicked Drain Punch and Mach Punch on everything and was like chipping everything down. But overall, it was a game that could have gone Clonbrook's way if a few factors had been just a little bit different. What do you think, Syracuse?
So, I know I said last time I really wanted Caleb's schedule. Actually, I stand corrected. I want Clonbrook's schedule next season. But I think another point to hit home that might hurt you even more, Don, is he got rid of the Rotom Heat and he hasn't brought Pelipper.
Yeah, that's true.
Which
because this is what a week 3 transaction, so it went into effect
Yeah.
week 4. So yeah, he's had 2 weeks to bring it. It just hasn't. So yeah.
Week 1 was obviously a forced win. So 2 and 2 more so, but he does have dominant wins, and then his 2 losses were a sweep and then a close loss to another very competitive team. It's a very unique team in the terms of like when you draft a Lola Mola first, I guess you got to be able to back it with your play, and just not having like it just look at it's the synergy is just not. I don't feel it here with this team. He has piloted well in some games, like you said. He got the 5-0 against Caleb, which is impressive, but it's just he's still got a few more transactions. Maybe he can cook something up this next week before it is. I know one thing that does stand out to me is I always like to have when you're looking at Terra captains, I always want one for defensive, one for offensive. With all of his Terra captains being defensive more so, I feel like you're missing out on having that potential offensive threat like we saw in his game with that Jolteon, having an offensive Terra type to punch through a hole. I feel like that's something he is lacking with this team. Otherwise than that, he's got Tottenham this week, myself the week after, and then Sceptiles for his last match. So whatever easy matches he might have had early on in the week, it's only going to get tougher from here on out. He has a very rougher end versus his beginning. Let's see what he can do. He still can easily, like we keep saying over and over again, he can make playoffs. He's still very much in playoff contention. I feel like as long as he gets maybe one more win, he's definitely not in relegation range. But it's just a team that's kind of I don't know what I could do to fix it more so, but it just looking at it, just playing on paper without even looking at his play just feels odd to me. Like you said, you have Rain but no Swift Swimmer. I know Archaladon likes to take advantage of it, but otherwise than that, you have really no offensive mons to take advantage of it. Let's see what he can do. Otherwise than that, I don't know what else more to add to it.
All right, I guess in that case, we're going to move on to our number 6 team, the Snowpoint Temple Zoruas. And they just played against Clonbrook. Like we just talked about this game a little bit. I feel like Snowpoint was really getting kind of put in a pack in like the early game, and still, if like the sets were, if Clonbrook had different sets, probably could have or would have lost in the end game. But instead, Jolteon pulled off a masterclass, which it's done the last couple of weeks for Snowpoint. Jolteon was kind of it's like one of those mons that was one of the standard like best low tier Terra captains for a while, and then it kind of fell out of favor for Natural. Now I feel like it's kind of just back. Really putting in great work with it. I don't actually know if the Iron Leaves transaction was before or after this week, but I do want to say I thought the Iron Leaves was doing fantastic on this team. I don't quite understand why you get rid of it. I thought it was a great Terra captain. Okie dokie is not a bad one by any stretch. I personally prefer Iron Leaves. We do have some team changes overall. Like the Hisuian Arcanine used to be Terrakion, which I know Terrakion was brought to the Clonbrook game, and I believe it got the last kill against. I don't know, it didn't. Julie got the last kill against the Archaladon, but Terrakion was threatening to both the Regieleki and the Archaladon in the end game. But overall, like Snowpoint's play overall, whole season has been relatively solid. If we look at the wins so far, like the wins and losses, they haven't been they haven't been like massive wins. Like the biggest win was a 4-0 against Tokyo, but they haven't been like super small, like small wins, like 1-0s either. Like it's been a 3-0, a 4-0, and a 2-0 in terms of the wins, and the losses have been a 2-0 and a 3-0. And so like that's, to me, that screams consistency, and that's something you really like in a division as, quite frankly, I can't think of a better word than chaotic for as chaotic as Sunset. Like basically, there's a lot of dramatic wins and losses, and this team so far has been like that beacon of consistency throughout the season, and so far it's served them well. And but if we look at the rest of their schedule, they go against Orlando Magikarps, Nico, which, like I've been saying, that's number one on the leaderboards right now. Excuse me. So that's going to be a difficult team to beat. Then it goes against Cherry Hill, which is that's a team with an Iron Valiant, so automatically it's a hard team. But thankfully you have Moltres, which honestly is one of the better Valiant checks in the game. You just have to watch out for some like T-Bolt shenanigans, stuff like that. And then against Toronto, which is a team that's struggled to find its footing so far. But overall, this team, it's been solid. I think I had some criticisms of it in the at the beginning of the season, but like I've been pretty much proven wrong so far. I feel like Ogerpon has only come to one game so far, and it's not really doing a whole lot. Maybe consider making a swap with it because this is the last week for transactions. So if you're looking to make more changes to Snowpoint, I would recommend looking at maybe seeing if you can get anything in the Ogerpon slot for better, like to get more value out of it for the upcoming weeks. But yeah, overall, I think Snowpoint's been just very consistent so far, and last week shows it. What do you think, Syracuse?
Um, like you said, their play has been very consistent of late. This is going to be the team that upsets in playoffs. I'm predicting it now. I'm hedging my bets. They will upset probably one of the top four teams in playoffs, whoever they're facing. I feel like this team right here, with the way they've been playing, and just the consistency of it, will be the upsetter come playoff time. And yes, I do think they will make playoffs, especially with how they've been playing. Even they have rough matchup this week against Nico, so maybe a loss, but they could upset them. They've beaten me, they beat Kuma, so they only lost to Manila and Scarborough. But the teams that are, but they've been beating the teams that are higher ranked than those two. So it's this is the giant killer team right here. So they could easily go 6-2 and become one of the top four teams. This is, I feel like their play has been so great. This almost feels dirty having them this low on the leaderboards, but as we always keep saying, wins matter more. But come the end of the season, this will probably be our fifth or fourth seed team that will upset one of the teams. And I just, like you said, they've been taking advantage of a lot of transactions. Losing leaves, I'm a little interested about because that was the mon that swept me. But as Za has said in the past, if you know how to play against it, you should be able to counter it. Versus Okidoki, which is like, Okidoki's okay. I know Ben likes to crap on it a lot to me. So we'll see what they can do piloting wise. I think Hisuian Arcanine is overall a little bit better than Terrakion. It fills a similar niche, but also has a little bit higher offensive power than Terrakion. I mean, close combat's still great, but having the rock head and being able to just do big blows, put a choice man on this thing and it's gonna kill something. But yeah, there's not much more I can really add to this. You can swap out Ogerpon, as you were talking about earlier this week. Ogerpon's in the 140 range, so there's plenty of things that are still available in that range. You got Hisuian Gudra, Rotom Wash, surprisingly, Skeledirge. So there are some things you can swap it out for if you are looking to do that. But this is a team that's been, slowly kind of making a name for themselves and is currently under the radar. But by the end of the season, I think this might be one of the teams to look out for.
All right. And with that, I think we're going to move on to our number 5 team, being the Scarborough Sceptiles. This is Geo. Now, Geo is coming off of a 5-0 win against me, in which he played very well. I do think that he might have been a little bit careless in the game about letting certain things get chipped, like letting Ting Lu get really chipped, which, to be fair, it was a banded Ting Lu, so it was meant to break. And also, I think some things like Tinkaton not coming was really strange to me because it was A, one of the better Enamorous answers on the team, and B, one of the better Roaring Moon answers on the team, both of which were fairly threatening without Tinkaton there. Now, Gio played very well in this game, but honestly, I think the biggest reason he won, like not to discredit him in any way, but the biggest reason he won is because I choked in the builder. We'll talk about it a little bit more when it comes to my team in just a couple here. But basically, if I had been the boost energy that I had originally planned on Roaring Moon, I would have won on the spot when it came out. There's a little bit of fiction where it still could have lost, but regardless, Gio did play very very well this game. He brought offensive. I think it was Banded Tinglu, which honestly I should have calced earlier because I didn't realize it was banded because I was just getting in my own head. Which it was a good bring. I've been put in a pack by Tinglu a few too many times. Honestly, I should have respected it more, but I didn't, and it ended up basically costing me my Enamorous, which was the biggest breaking threats. And so by doing that, which I expected to be a free setup opportunity, it instead did like 86% with Heavy Slam. So it was a great bring by Geo. The lead Adrenaline Orb Mienshao is a really cool bring, and it kind of forced me to maneuver myself really awkwardly and lose my Assault Vest on what was supposed to be my Spectrier check. And spoiler alert, Spectrier got like almost it was either almost every kill or it got every on the team. And now it's tied for first for kill leader in the division. So he positioned his Scarf Spectrier really well. He played to his outs very well. And honestly, like, considering my team is so weak to ghost types like Spectrier, it put in a lot of work, and he knew exactly what he had to do to win, and he did it. Even without the obvious brings like Tinkaton, in my opinion, he was able to find alternate ways to push through my team. And, like, honestly, if we look at the rest of his schedule, I think he wins all three. This isn't pick'ems, but like his team is really strong. It's got Spectrier, Dragapult, like the two best ghosts in the format, two of the debatably best Mons in the format. And like this team, I would not be shocked to see this team be like top 3 going into playoffs. What do you think, Syracuse?
Well, it's the Spectrier team, but it's also got Dragapult. So it basically comes down to, do you have an answer to Ghost? No, you lose. And that's how I kind of have been viewing this team as we're going forward. Like you said yourself, you didn't really have a great answer for it, and he was able to get a win from it. And I feel like just if whoever he goes up against, if they don't have an answer for this insane ghost threat of Spectre or Dragapult, he's going to have an easy win. Whether or not his play is subject to that, that or not, it doesn't matter because he can just click Shadow Ball, or with Dragapult you can either do offensive or defense, offensive or special. My brain's fried. But looking at his team, it's just Spectre getting all the kills. He's got 3 kills on Dragapult, 3 kills on Mienfoo, and then 1 on Zapdos. No one else has really been able to do anything. He's brought in Banded Tinglu. Tinglu's one of those mons that I feel like I was looking at this thing when I was trying to prep against Geo, and I'm like, oh god, this thing is like can almost do a lot of different things and is so scary. And I think that's one thing that gets slept on a lot. Is just the danger of his team. So looking at these first 3 mons, this is the top heavy team that's like, if you don't have an answer for these 3, you're just going to be rolling over at this point. I feel obligated to say Fortress because Ben's always whispering in my ear Fortress ain't the greatest, but he's only brought it the one time, and then otherwise than that, it's not really a big big deal otherwise. I don't know what other hazard removal he has besides what Defog Zapdos, right?
I don't think it gets defog anymore.
No, I'm okay. Am I being Mandela affected again, or did I have it at one point?
But Tentacle has spin, Fortress has spin.
Okay.
So yeah, it's got both of those.
He's got a few removals, but mostly just Tentacle that he's been bringing. He's brought Tentacle 4 times. It's one of those teams where I really think, in honest to God, that Snowpoint might have a slightly better like power ranking spot over than Geo. The thing that Geo has though is the win over Snowpoint. But the wins he has against teams that he should be beating against, Snowpoint and Cherry Hill, he's gotten losses versus the top 2 teams. This was his big week though, and winning this one can set the momentum for him for the rest of this week. As you said, he's got 3 matches that he should win, and this could easily propel him into the top 4 teams. It's welcome to the Thunderdome that is Sunset. I think Geo is going to be able to sweep from here, and we'll see him move up these power rankings going forward. But not much else to add. I don't think there'd be really anything I'd really swap out of his team. No really transactions or anything like that.
Zapdos did get defog last gen, but not this gen.
Okay. All right. I'm not being fully crazy.
All right. From this point, we're going to move on to our number 4. And I want to say from this point forward, in my opinion, all of these teams are like basically interchangeable. I think the teams are ranked in the order that they should be, but like I would understand any argument saying that like Kuma could be number 1 for this reason or that reason, because they all have the same record. But let's be clear, these top 4 teams all have the same record, and 2 of them each are tied in differential. Like the top 2 teams are 4-1 plus 12, and then the 3rd and 4th are 4-1. Wait, did I say plus 12? It's 4-1 plus 16, and then 4-1 plus 12 for the ties. So like it really is neck and neck for the top teams in Sunset right now. But that being said, our number 14 is the Tokyo Teddiursas, and they're coming off of a win against the Salt Lake Salandits, which is the bottom team in both leaderboards and power rankings. And honestly, in my opinion, this game was a lot closer than it probably should have been. Not even necessarily because of like bad plays from Kuma. I feel like there was just really good prep brought for Terapagos. And the freeze on Poliwrath was really unfortunate, and it let Cass make a lot of progress with Suicune. But in the end, Zarude and Thundurus clutched up double electrics into a team with a weak ground. Like the double electrics that have ways to beat grounds against a team whose ground is Golurk, so it just made it a lot easier. Lycanroc had potential to put this team in a pack, but between Gliscor being physically defensive and the paralysis, it was never really an issue. I think like this team, it's really strong. It's proven that. Terapagos being the kill leader on this team, and then that it shows it's really leaning towards supporting these 2 for endgame scenarios. I worry that Kuma might have fallen into the trap that Terapagos just 6-0s everything off lead, and so he's leading it a bit often, because that's what he did against Tottenham, right? And it worked for him then. And then I think he led it again this week, and it got kind of bodied. And then I think I've also seen him like try prepping for like helping other people prep in other leagues who have Terapagos, and he's like, man, lead Terapagos kind of goes crazy. I just don't want him to predictable in his last 3 weeks, because looking at his schedule right now, it's a tough one. This week he plays Toronto, which is probably like the easiest game for him going forward. Not to say that it's an easy game, period. It's just he goes against me the week after, and not to gas myself up, and then Syracuse after that. Both of which are like both of us are top 3 teams at the moment. Or top 4 if you count mine and Kuma's as a tie. But point being, he goes against some of the heavy hitters in Sunset for his last 2 weeks, and so that can make it really tough for him to like really push things as a top team. But this team overall is really, really good. It's definitely going to get... I don't expect them to lose every game going forward. I absolutely expect them to qualify for playoffs. This is absolutely a championship contender team. Like, this team could absolutely... I don't think too much more to say about it. It's just pretty straightforward. This is a good team. He said comfortable wins. What do you think, Syracuse?
I agree that this is an insanely strong team, and I don't mean to discredit Kuma in any way, but he has the two Mons that are causing probably some of the biggest issues in all of the divisions, being Terapagos and Terra Zarud, and having them both on the same team is utterly insane. They've been just tearing up every division, and he's been tearing it up down here in Sunset. Like you said, the leading Terapagos every week is starting to get a little scary. I hope he spices it up a bit with something else. But honestly, Terapagos is one of those mons where has so few counters. Like I'm gonna have to sit in the lab week 8 and figure out like what I'm going to do to beat this mon. But it has so few counters that like you can just send it out and it's gonna beat it. His only loss so far has been to Snowpoint, which, like I said earlier, Snowpoint's going to be the giant killer. And he's the only loss that he's beaten the number 1 team by the power rankings. So he does have that going in his favor. And as you said earlier, this is the top 4 are a toss up for a reason. And come these next few weeks, especially for his last 2 matches, that'll be his time to either take that first place spot, which he might have coming to him, or he's going to have that big roadblock going for him. But this is one of the scariest, hardest to prep teams, just because Terapagos and Zarud and just destroy things. And then you also got Metagross, Gliscor, and Cinderace, as well as Thundurus being those scary threats as well. So I'm not looking forward to my match against him, not gonna lie, but we'll see. But even though he might be the 4th technically in these power rankings, he's easily top 3.
All right, and with that, we'll move on to our number 3 team, which is me. Look at me, I'm up here at the top. Anyways, this week I'm coming off of a loss to Geo, like we talked about before. But even though I came off a loss, I still think, like, honestly, I would say between me and Kuma, this is as dead of a tie as it gets. Because in terms of losses, I lost to the team that's sitting at number 7 right now. He lost to the team that's sitting at number 6 right now. Like, it really, in terms of our losses, it's effectively like the same thing. But we actually have like a very similar schedule going forward too. Kuma and I play week 7, and we both play Syracuse in the next 3 weeks. And then after that, we have a team that's like somewhere in the middle. So like, it really is as dead of a tie as that gets. But the reason I lost to Geo is that I got in my own head. I told myself, nah, he wouldn't bring Scarf Spectrier. That's cringe. And then he brought Scarf Spectrier, and so my Roaring Moon got Draining Kissed even at +1 speed. And it made me very sad, because if I outsped the Spectrier, I had played the game to the point where it looked like I was behind, but I had put everything that I had needed to in range of Roaring Moon. Zapdos was at like 30-something%. Tinglu, I think, was also in that range. Mienshao died from 100% to Dragon Claw. Tentacruel died. The Dragapult was at 50%. The Spectrier died. So everything on the team would have died to Roaring Moon as long as I outsped. But I didn't outspeed because I prepped badly. And that's on me, 100%. I didn't give the matchup the time that it deserved in the builder. I think I made it like a few minutes before the game, which that's a mistake on my end. It happens. But I feel like overall, my play hasn't been like, I don't think my play was horrendous in the game. I definitely let myself get off to a bad start, and I fell behind quickly. I let myself get really juked out by the Mienshao at the beginning. I should have calced triple axle damage because I believe I was bulky Lando. I think I was max HP Lando. And I should have calced triple axle at -1 from Mienshao and seen if I could take it or something. But instead, I went to my Overquill and lost my Assault Vest, which was supposed to help me check Spectrier. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I probably just lost to Spectrier. And that's exactly what happened. Furthermore, I probably didn't bring the most effective Iron Crown set. I brought Choice Specs, which just leads to a lot of 50-50s that I kind of just lost. I've never used Iron Crown before, so it's a learning curve in that aspect for me. On top of that, I got greedy with my Enamorus. I took Tinglu for granted. I was like, this is a free setup opportunity, and then I took 86%. So basically, I made a lot of little mistakes, like one-turn mistakes, this matchup, like this week, and it really compounded in a pretty devastating loss for me. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Syracuse.
So looking at your schedule, you're going to be the one team that has almost two separate seasons in one season. Your first 4 weeks versus you got like some of the bottom 4 teams. And then you got these last 4 weeks versus some of the top 5, 6 teams. And then, even Caleb's in the middle of the pack, so you can't even sleep on him. So you have a tale of almost like 2 separate seasons. Like a Neon season and a Stargazer season, all packaged in one. Your team, you've been just dominating with this Enamorus, this freaking turtle over here.
It's a good mon.
It is a very good mon. If you don't have a fairy counter, boy oh boy, just cry. Just cry. That's all I could say to you. But I said this, I remember when I did the last time with Power Rankings with Mug. This is the Swiss Army Machete. It's got a lot of, just stats, just high stats. Roaring Moon, high stats. Lando T, high stats. And Hammer T, high stats. You got Overquill, you got Entei. This is the stat team that is, you got to be able to punch through it. And it, sadly, Geo got you this week, but if anything's going to punch through the stat team, it's going to be Spectrier, because Spectrier is just that mon. We'll see how you do against this week. I think you have a really tough opponent that might 6-0 you. I don't know why I get that hunch or anything like that, but to save from talk any kind of smack talk, otherwise I think you have probably one of the scarier teams. So it's these last 3 weeks are going to be your prove it though. Like I said, this is the entire separate season in of itself. These last 4 weeks.
All right, and now since we're done talking about my team, we'll start talking about your teams here.
I've been chipped out of first place. Chipped out of first place. I'll remember this.
Say that all you want.
If I just got the 6-0 sweep.
Yep, if you had clicked Hurricane instead of Focus Blast, you'd probably be up there right now.
Well, Hurricane doesn't kill.
But you didn't. Anyways,
well, it would have killed if he had no special defense. Oh well.
Yeah, but like I said before, these top 4 teams, in my opinion, really are interchangeable. Syracuse, it really could be number 1. Like it's honestly at this point kind of a meaningless distinction, because in terms of record and differential, he is tied with the first place team. That being said, he played against Tottenham this week. I think I talked about it a little bit when we talked about Tottenham, but Syracuse, he really just leaned into his offensive strength this matchup. Brought Nasty Plot Torn, Wide Lens, Hurricane, Focus Blast, Heat Wave. Decided if I'm going to be rolling the dice, I may just make it a little bit more in my favor. And it got 5 kills. Would have been 6 if the Ursulin weren't bulletproof, which is a cool bring. I think it's a cool bring into with Tornado, so you can't get focused by it. Also, actually, it doesn't really help with Zora because he's already used. But yeah, I think it's a cool bring. Although I feel like Guts might have been on paper a little bit stronger because Facade is the team. But this team is really strong. Slept on a low stand slash, and it's people gotten punished for it. It can do things. It can do slush things. It can do banded things if it wants to. It's just it's a good team. Incineroar is a mon I've wanted to use for a long time. That mon is compression in a bottle. Even if it's not VGC, it's still intimidate, a ghost resist, not a fairy resist. It's dark type, but great pivoting, great status spreader. It's just about your own team.
Sorry, what was that last one?
What do you have to say?
Easily best team in the league. Not full bias, but I've been really enjoying this team. This is what me, as Soaring likes to say, my front office and myself cooked up. It's been really enjoyable.
It's such a cool term to say, like a front. I don't know. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's my front office. Me and my front office, including a certain analyst, Alakazam, currently helping me out a bit. I got a few different mock partners here and there helping me out. So I can't take full credit for everything, uh, even though I really want to. But I've had the support, and one thing I really enjoy about this team is it's not. You don't really, looking at the leaderboard of my team, there is no one sweeper that has 16, 12 kills, 10 kills. Everything's doing its part. Even like if you look even Zoroark, even though it only has one kill, it's done its duty to win matches. And I feel like everything on my team just kind of it's the overall team. We don't have the superstar wide receiver or superstar quarterback carrying us. It's this team, just everyone's doing their part and getting the dub. And I've been really enjoying this team, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna make any transactions otherwise. There's a few things here or there, like maybe minor things I might look at, but I think I've had a really enjoyable season so far. Granted, I have probably the toughest last 3 weeks versus any other team. I don't think any other team has a tougher last 3 weeks. So even though I was telling Don that he had...
It's pretty much the same as me and Kuma, right? Like we all pretty much have the same last 3 weeks. We all play each other.
Yeah, because you face Caleb, and then Kuma faces Kuma faces...
Kuma has Toronto, Don, you.
So
yeah.
And then, so out of the three of us...
Yeah, then
I guess
Clonbrook.
Yeah, Clonbrook. I don't know who I'd rather face, Clonbrook or New York Nickits, but I know
Clonbrook.
Probably. I don't know. Either way, it's a tough last schedule, but it's the Thunderdome for a reason, and I wish you the best of luck, Don. And now that you've pissed me off by not putting me at 1, expect to feel full fury of my team. And I guess we might as well talk about the gold medalist over here.
But y'all can bond over over hating number one.
Not salty overall. It's the
that's the thing. Here's the thing. Our number 1 team, I've talked about this team a bunch already, the Orlando Magikarps. This team is number 1 because he's been leaning into his team's strengths phenomenally, in my opinion. He's gotten a lot of work out of Terra Tornadus, Terra Rotom, and Gouging Fire, especially Gouging Fire this last game. I believe... Oh, no, sorry, never mind. He didn't drop Tornadus, so someone else did in another division. But anyways, this last game against Cherry Hill, we talked about it before. Gouging Fire, it did its thing. It did its thing. It went crazy. And honestly, Garganacl made it possible because Garganacl was just throwing around Salt Cures into this bulky team. It got Corviknight low. I think it got Clodsire low too. And so basically, Garganacl set the conditions. And then Rotom got the 1 kill that helped position Gouging, I guess. Gouging would have beaten it anyways. But Rotom, it got a kill. It did a thing. But yeah, Gouging Fire, it went crazy. Nico knew the set he needed to bring. He brought it. He brought it out at the right time, and he clicked the right moves. He used them on the way it's supposed to be used. If we look at the rest of his schedule, he could very easily win all 3 of them. Snowpoint, leaderboard wise, is number 6, so it's a half team, and it's comfortably top half. But then the last 2 games he has are against Manilla Manectrics, which is a team that it hasn't been able to find its rhythm yet, and Salt Lake, who doesn't have a win yet. So Nico, this is the team. If I had to guess, that's going to be number 1 come playoffs. It's going to be Nico. There's no doubt in my mind. And I know Nico thinks I hate his team. I don't. I just think it has a couple weaknesses, but he's been playing around them so wonderfully. It just doesn't matter. Who cares if your team has weaknesses? If you can just blow past everyone before you have to worry about it, right? So, yeah, I think that this team is very, very strong. He's leaned into this team's strengths very well so far, and the Terra Cap have been one of the best, if not the best, in the division so far. I feel like Terra, getting to have a Terra Rotom form, just having those stats for so cheap and having 3 types on it is crazy. What do you think, Syracuse?
I think while you, me, and Kuma will be busy tearing each other apart, he's going to have an easy cruise into that first place spot. I mean, looking at his schedule, like you said, he's got 3 matches that he should win. Granted, I think Snowpoint might steal a win just because Snowpoint's just got to... I think they have to beat all of the top 3 teams because that's just the narrative of this division. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes. Like I said, this week is the week to watch Sunset. I don't care about any other division. This is the week to watch Sunset, and that will be probably one of the matches that will be fun to watch. The one thing that does kind of like stare me in the face is that Scizor hasn't been brought to any games. I don't know if he's gonna maybe swap it out right before transactions ends or something like that, but not that he's needed it, obviously. But I just look at this, those are points that could be used towards something else. Maybe just the min-maxer and myself just kind of have a little OCD about it. But otherwise than that, Nico's been playing very, very well. His only loss is to Kuma, so maybe that is the fraud in that is his schedule, that he has lost to one of the top 4 teams than everyone else he's been cruising on. So his trial will, even though he might get, if he can get past Snowpoint today or this week, he'll be fine. But come playoffs, that might be where he gets a rude awakening, but we'll see. But otherwise than that, he's been playing, we can't even say it's just gouge and go, because like you said, he has that Rotom Frost that's been absolutely insane, using the chilly reception and shooting off blizzards. If you don't have an ice resist, which a lot of the teams in Sunset are struggling with ice resist, I've noticed a lot of them do have a lot of ice weakness, he's just going to tear through them, and that's what he's been doing every single week, or at least the weeks that, that's been popping off. And Tornadus also doing great. He's got three of the top 10 kill leaders, and 2 of them are tied for 5th. So he has a very offensive heavy team, while also having that decent defense core of Slowking, Garganacl, and even Clef. Even though Clef has kind of fallen off in these last few gens, it's still a nasty mon that can't be slept on. So Nico might be staying here for the next few weeks, but we'll see. If you get past this week, it'll be his throne to sit on for the rest of the weeks. So crossing my fingers. And that's
I agree with that.
That's about all she wrote for, I think, this. I mean, anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. I feel like some of these, I think you have to be really careful about dropping Scizor, which like you can do, but it's also your only real fairy resist. And calling Scizor a real fairy resist makes me cry. But if you drop it, if you drop the Scizor, you have to grab something else in that slot, right? Like to be a fairy resist. But the only real option in that point range is, I guess there's Toxapex, but there's like Monkey Dory, and like that's it. Those are your 2 fairy resist options. So I don't know. Personally, I think the Scizor could probably stay. It just probably needs to just get its ass off the bench.
I'll say maybe he could pick up that free Rotom Heat, have a Rotom core, 2 different Rotoms just volt switching on you.
I think
Species
that's
Clause?
Species Clause, yeah, because it's about Dex
is that
number.
Species Clause? Oh,
Yeah, because it's Dex number.
Yep. Unfortunate. Nice try though.
Oh boy, never mind.
But Swagger's legal. Ayo.
Swagger's
Keep it in
can't have
mind.
can't have 2 Rotoms, but Swagger's legal. I'll get my lawyer involved.
That's how we do it in PBO. Thank you all for watching. This has been Sons of Power Rankings. See you next time.